Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Sai. Thank you so much for coming. It's a big schus to see every single one of you. I know how busy you are this time of the year, especially my dear friend Rabbi Ravinsky, who's doing budgeting for the Midwest, and Rabbi Freilich and Rabbi Fima and Reb Dave and Reb Shulman and Reb Ben. Thank you all for joining us. I will not, Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, let you down, because I plan to share with you Torah that I don't normally get a chance to share, because I rarely get to talk at this extraordinary junction in the Jewish calendar between Geulah and Geulah. The halacha is that Adar Sheni is when we keep the mitzvahs of Purim, the Dalet Parshias, Lismach Geulah LeGeulah Adav Teis. The Gemara Megillah says to juxtapose the two Geulas, the Geulas of Purim with the Geulas of Pesach. We also, for those of you that heard my recording that I just shared when I was in Miami 2 weeks ago, we're also in a month of Adar where the Svarim bring down. One is in the Medrash, the other is in Reb Chaim Vital, that our enemy is called the Adam. Right? The Adam, that is a unique and special enemy that does not represent regular Malchios, is one of two things. It's either Haman, which is Amalek, or it is Yishmael, which is called a Para Adam. In that share, I explained the commonality that they have between the two, but it's something unique and special that comes out during the months of Adar. Today, I want to talk about two other things that are about to happen. One is that Adar base is about to meet Nissan, and the other thing I want to mention is that at the end of the month, there's going to be what's called a solar eclipse, and both of them are inyanim that connect the koyach of the Levana with the koyach of the Chama. So I want to take these things one by one. Let's start off by talking about what's called SOD Ibbur. SOD Ibbur is something that is unique and special in the eyes of Chazal. The Sfarim Hakadoshim talk about it in tremendous detail. At first glance, the Ibbur, which is the second Adar, is nothing more than something technical, nothing more than something that has to be, because we all know that in Jewish Hashkafa, there has to be a constant alignment between the months, which are lunar-based, and the years, which are solar-based. The simple pshat is that, I'm going to read you the Rambam in a moment, but we know that the halacha states that, for example, it has to be that Pesach falls in the spring to be able to fulfill the pasuk in the Torah, Hayoim atem yotzim b'chodesh ha'aviv, and with that comes unique mitzvahs that connect to Pesach and then connect to Shavuos. You have the Omer, you have the She'er Lechem, and so on and so forth. So our Yom Tovim are seasonal, and our Yom Tovim are connected to the weather and to the different seasons. At the same time, they are dates in the lunar calendar. They are when the moon are at its zenith, that is Pesach, is when the month of Nissan is at its zenith, and that is why it is so important to make sure that the two are kept together. Let me read to you the words of the Rambam. And first of all, just a quick reminder, the basic idea of a Ibbur is what we learned in kindergarten, or maybe a little later in Kitta Zayin in 7th grade. We were told that the difference between a solar year, which is the time it takes for the sun to come back to where it started, which is 365 days, and the lunar year, which is 354 days, is approximately 11 days, just a little bit more than 11 days, a little bit less than 11 days. So the way the rabbis worked it out is that they realized that every couple of years, if you add a month, so then it is possible to align them. The knowledge that the Chazal had back in the day, remember it was after the Greeks, scientific knowledge was very broad, but we always had the knowledge of how to make calendars. We were the B'nai Yisachar, the Bina Be'itim, and they knew how to make sure through a second month called Adar that the 2 months would always be aligned. Let me read to you the words of the Rambam, because the Rambam is going to tell us that this is not just a technical arrangement, but it is something that is mandated midoraisa. It is part of the job of the Sanhedrin to make sure that this thing happens. And let me read to you his words. Kishem shebeistim. This is in Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh. Kishem shebeistim mekachim chadashim. Kach hey ma'avirim shanim. So beistim have two jobs. Number one is to sanctify the months, and the other is to ma'aber the years. And I quote now from Perek Daled, Shana Mu'aberes, Hishana Shemeisifim Bei Chodesh, Ve'ein Meisifim La'olam Ela Adar, Ve'oisim Oisei Shnei Adarim, Adar Rishon Ve'Adar Sheni. So you can only add 1 month and 1 month only, and that is a second Adar. Umipnei Ma Meisifim Chodesh Zeh, Mipnei Shashon Rishanu Mechashvim, Hein Pnei Hachama, V'shnas hachama yisera al shnas levana karev lacharas hayayim v'i efsha liyos hashana shnei mas hachodesh v'kach yamim shenema. And he brings down a pasuk. This is the pasuk in Shemais base, pasuk base. Hachodesh hazeh lachem rosh chodashim rishon hu lachem l'chadshe hashana. So for those that just joined us, the Heiliger of Eli Loeb, there's a pasuk in Parshas Bo that says that Beistin had two jobs. One is HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim, to make Nissan the first year in the 12 months, and the second is it always has to be first L'Chadshe Hashana. And the Rambam says Chadashim Ata Moine L'Shana V'Ata Moine Yamim. So we don't count days, we count Chadshe, we count months. So there has to be 12 months in a Jewish year, and as we all know, those 12 months are very, very significant. The Sefer Yetzirah goes into great detail, showing the keiches of each of those 12 months, and those 12 months have to fit into this thing called a year. So you have Chadshe Hashana. Chadshe Hashana, the Rambam is learning that this is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Other Rishonim say it's d'Rabbanan. Doesn't make a difference. Either way, this is something that is done every so often. Zman ha'aviv sheyeh chodesh hazeh b'zman ha'aviv. It has to be seasonal. I just want to point out, I'm going to mention in a moment Ramadan. Ramadan goes according to the lunar cycle alone, because Islam does not need to realign the moon, which is their symbol, with the sun, which is the symbol of Esav. And that is why, if you live in Ibn Israel, you'll know that Ramadan falls in all kinds of different parts of the seasons. It can be anywhere, and it happens to be by chance this year that Ramadan ends. The climax of Ramadan is going to be the climax of Adar Sheni, the last day of Adar Sheni, which turns into Nissan, which is the day of the great eclipse of the sun. Okay, let's keep going over here. So now there's a thing called SOD HaIbbur, the great secret of the Ibbur. I have over here Pirkei Erev Eliezer. If you have one at home, so there's two chapters you should see. One is the beginning of the 6th chapter. Just read it very, very briefly, and then go over to the 8th chapter. Read it in detail. It is so fascinating. Let me just give you the highlights over here. Pirkei Erev Eliezer, Perek Vav. Quote: the Revi Chiber, the beginning of Pirkei Erev Eliezer goes through the 6 days of creation. Revi, on the 4th day of creation, Chiber Shnei Ma'iros Gedolos. So Kadosh Baruch Hu put into the Bria 2 great shining Ma'iros, which is the sun and the moon. Lo zeh gadol mizeh, v'lo zeh gadol mizeh. They were both of equal size, and it's implied of equal stature. V'shavim b'gvuram, v'tifartam. They are equal in their, b'gaveim, in their size, and they are equal in their beauty. They were equal in their size, and they were equal in their beauty. V'ta'iram, and equal in the light that they gave out. Shenema v'yas l'kim shnei ma'iros v'gaimer. Now, nichnas tacharus v'neihem. So today is not the day to talk about what does it mean that the sun and the moon were fighting. The Leshem does go into this into great detail, but let's keep going with the narrative we were taught when we were in Cheder, when we were children. The sun and the moon have a fight. Ani gadol mimcha, I am greater than you. Ani gadol mimcha, I am greater than you. V'loi haya shalom beinayim. They're already fighting. You have the first koyach of what we call in Kabbalistic language zachav and nekeva. The first marital fight ever is between husband and wife, is between the sun and the moon. It's the first fight that we find. Ma'asa Kodesh Baruch Hu. Higdil esa echad v'hiktin esa echad. One was made the big one was made the small one. Shenema brings the psukim, etc. Let's move on to the 8th parak. This already is new material. Be'esrim v'shmeina le'elo nivru chamul levana. What was the date when they were created? The 28th of El. So this is not difficult for us to figure out. Man was created on Rosh Hashanah. The world was created on the 25th. The Wednesday would be the 28th of the month. What happened next? Haya lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'haya ma'aber es hashana. So on that day, when he created the sun and the moon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was ma'aber the shana v'ach misiran la'adam. He gave over the information how to do this action called Ibbur Shana to Adam Rishon. And then it says, Harishon began Eden. The first was in Gan Eden. Now, I don't know about you and me, but when you learn the Gemara in Sanhedrin, it talks about hour for hour what happened on that first day of creation of man, on that 6th day, on that first Rosh Hashanah. It was a very, very, very busy day. It was when Adam and Chava were created, and then afterwards they had a zivug, and then they had 2 sons, and then they had seduced by the snake, and then they sinned, and then they were judged, and then they were kicked out, and all these things happened on the first day of creation. Comes along Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer, we're missing part of the story. What also happened on that day is that Kadosh Baruch Hu calls over Adam Rishon in Gan Eden and says, look, I have to teach you something very important, which is how to do Ibbur Hashana. Now, what's interesting is that the word Seid HaIbbur does not happen until later on when Adam Rishon is kicked out of the garden, and it says, Haya Adam Moisre Lechanach V'nichnas L'Seid HaIbbur. Then Adam Rishon taught the secrets that he got in the Garden of Eden. The Nichnas and Chanayf went into Seid HaIbbur, this great secret called the Ibbur. The Radal, Reb David Luria, which is the most important commentary on Pirkei Rebbe Eliezer, says that this is not just a technical piece of information, it's halacha l'maisa. How do we know that Ibbur Hashana can only be done in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, unless it's Harasha, but strictly it can only be done in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh? Lilmoid l'deiros shemakaymai makam tahar v'kadosh v'lo b'chol, to teach us that the origins of Seder Ibbur needs a place that is the nearest place to Gan Eden. So Baruch Hashem, I sit now in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh. I'm about as close as we can get to this world called the world of Gan Eden. But the point is, that's where it should be, because the origins of Seid HaIbbur goes back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving the secret over to Adam Rishon. I'm quoting here and there from the next part. Adam Masul Chanach Nichnas Seid HaIbbur, the Ibbur Shana. Chanach passes over to there's a girsa that says Musushelach to Noach to Shem. The Shem is dafka interesting because there it says, and then Shem, because he had the secret of the Ibbur, that is why he became the Kohen Gadol. So Shem was the Kohen Gadol. What made him so elevated was he was the master of the secret of Ibbur. Shem gives it to Avram Avinu, Avram to Yitzchak, Yitzchak to Yaakov, Yaakov to Yosef. Yaakov gives it to Yosef. It doesn't say it anywhere, but I'm guessing that when the pasuk says in the beginning of Vayeshev that Yosef was the Ben Skunim, and the Ramban there says that Ben Skunim means he gave him over the secrets of the Zokain, and he implies that all the great secrets the Yaakov Avinu learned in Shem Ve'ever was given over to Yosef. So Yosef, as a 17-year-old boy, goes down into Egypt as the carrier of the SOD HaEbor. And then Yosef gives it on to Bnei Yisrael, and that's where the transmission ends off with the Sanhedrin Agadol in Yerushalayim. The Radal, Reb David Luria, brings down the following quote from Reb Meir Gabai. I think it's Meir Gabai, it could be Moshe Gabai, it's Haram Gabai, in the Sefer Avodas HaKodesh. Now I happen to know this from Moshe Shapiro. The Sefer Avodas HaKodesh of the Maram Gabai was very precious to the Maharal. The Maharal calls the Maram Gabai his teacher, his Rebbe, and Ramesha said he never actually saw him physically, but he felt since he learned his farm, he's like a Rebbe, which for me was an interesting insight, that you can call someone your Rebbe even if you never physically met him, but you got Torah from him, you studied his works, so you can call him your Rebbe. Be that as it may, he adds the following words. This is the Maram Gabai. He says, Soid ha'ebor ha'amitis, shuhu sisrei Torah v'tameh, the real Soid ha'ebor, which is the secrets of Torah and its tam, where the taste is found. Ki Ibbur hashana bo lahashvos hilachama v'levana. It comes to lahashvos, to give a parody. It should work together. The moon and the sun, or lechabe inyanim yachad, that there are two inyanim. He uses the word the inyan of the sun and the inyan of the moon should become one. V'zeh moira al yichud keichesehem, on the unity of their strengths. The dugmasim elyena, and their higher dugma. So this already is Kabbalah language that's not so rachik from us, because we all know that the sun and the moon has in it the higher sun and the higher moon. I don't know what this means, but I do know that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid the Or Haganos, it was into the Shemesh Hapnimi, and ultimately the SOD HaEbor is taking the Shemesh Hapnimi, the Levana Hapnimi, and giving them unity. Shu SOD HaYichud HaNelam, that is the SOD of Yichud HaNelam. V'chachmei Yisrael HaYedim HaSOD HaMufla Zeh, the great wise men of Israel knew this mufla, this wondrous SOD HaEbor. Ve'elav hayu mechavnim be'Ibbur Hashana. When they did Ibbur Hashana, they didn't sit there with their mathematical jackets on. They did it with their Kabbalah jackets on, and they had the kavana, they were mechavim when they realigned the sun and the moon to SOD HaEbor. Okay, so this is the technical side. This is the medrash. Let's switch over to Likui Hachama. So this is really something that's not my geekness. I don't know much about these things. I try to read up about it. This April the 8th in 2024 is going to be what Wikipedia calls the Great North American Eclipse. The Great North American Eclipse. So my brain, when I read Great North American Eclipse, my brain reads America. America is Esav. Esav is the Chama. It's happening in America. It's happening in America. Okay, where's Ruvain and Reb Dave? It's happening in Toronto. You're going to see it 100%. In Ottawa and in Montreal, you're going to see it. It is going to be every single major Jewish center is going to see this. It's going to peak in a place when it was the full blackout. It's going to max in a place called Little Egypt, which I thought was cute. But the point is that I just wanted to tell you, I just did this little interesting thing about SOD HaChama because it's so relevant. The Gemara in Sukkah, just to remind you, tells us the following. Bizman she'achama loike, this is Sukkah 29a, simin ra l'goyim. It's bad news for the goyim. Why? Because we know that Levana, continues, Levana loike, simin ra l'seneim shel Yisrael. But when it's a lunar a lunar eclipse, which means that the earth gets in the way. So that's a bad sign for Klal Yisrael that is connected the Levana. Yisrael mein Levana v'gayim lechama. So the Gemara basically tells us they, the bad guys, the Goyim is the sun, the good guys is Klal Yisrael, which is the moon. Who are the bad guys? The children of Esau. The children of Esau. Doesn't mention Yishmael. I discussed this with my friend Rabbi Zev Rodman. Some of you may know him. He knows 100 times more about these things than I do. And he says, which is going to be, we're going to go back to this in half an hour. This is going to be our challenge because Levana really belongs to us. They want to hijack the Levana. So theoretically speaking, a likui of the Levana, of the Chama by the Levana is a good symbol for Klal Yisrael. But when it comes to Yishmael, so I don't know. Let's hope it's bad for them as well. But they claim the koyach of the Levana. Let's see how this unfolds. I also want to point out the following thing. Somebody over here is going to go out and use this in Kiruv. I can just imagine Rabbi Ravinsky is going to go to that yogurt place, that yogurt place that he took me, the creamery, right? He's going to take me to the creamery, and then he's going to tell the guys about the great American thing. It could be even, I don't even know if they still have them now. I would go out and buy your super glasses right now before they all disappear. Somebody out there is going to make a ton of money. I hope it's a Yid. I hope Yid manufacture those glasses. But be that as it may, somebody's going to ask, why is this a good simon or a bad simon? We know this from astronomy. This has nothing to do with rabbis. Astronomy knows exactly when this is going to happen. So believe it or not, the Ben Yoyada asked this question, and he says the answer that secretly you and I expect. He says, V'nei, says the Ben Yoyada, this is right there in Sukkah Kaftes on the base. V'nei makshim, right? The lakisa chama v'levana huteva. It's part of nature. V'neida lispeinim kaidim shetirana. So already for 2,000 years, we've had instruments that can predict it with tremendous, tremendous accuracy. The Greeks had instruments to figure out when was Likha Hachama. So venerally, the Vadai who Hateva, okay? The Ben Yoyada is not hiding his head from Baghdad, is not hiding his head. He says it certainly is the part of Teva. Ach bisman shiyeh lokis, the lokis, when the sun gets hit, his eiru hamakatrik in the makatrik. V'lechenu siman ra, ki al yada yiseiru lekitruk kach darkom. What it means is, the sun and the moon represent keiches. When one is on the rise and one goes down, so they have different kochos, and when there's different kochos, so there's kitrug, there's heavenly kitrug. The forces that they represent are undermined, so to speak. So Klal Yisrael's kochos lamala have an advantage over the Chama, which is America, which is today the Malchus of American civilization, and that is symbolized with the Likha Chama, which is an opportunity for Klal Yisrael to misgabe al over the Chama. I'm not talking about getting more money, schnorring more money from Biden. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in the Pnimius, in the holiest of the holiest, 6,000 years of Galus. This is an opportunity for us to be misbainin in. So let's just think about this for a moment. It's interesting. I have a memory that it's a powerful memory that I have. Many years ago, I was working for a camp in South Africa, and there was a Yid called Rabbi Gabi Bukat. I have not heard from him for a while. I would love to reconnect to him. He took us on a hike up a mountain in the Drakensberg Mountains in the middle of the night. And he said it's called leopard country. I don't know why South Africans are so comfortable with that. Somehow or other, he took us to the summit, and it was literally middle of the night. And in South Africa, the sky is clear and the sky is gorgeous. There's the Milky Way over there, and he made us lie on our backs. And I had this memory. He gave us a class on astronomy, something I'd never heard of before. And I'm lying. When you lie on your back, you're looking at the stars, you feel very much alone. It's just you and the stars. And you get this tremendous feeling of the connection to Morabah Masech Hashem. And then at one moment, he said over the following thing, which I had never heard about this before, and could be you have heard about this, and that is the following. If you have the sun and the moon, there's no way that statistically there should be a liquid of one and the other. One should either be bigger and the other should be smaller. I wanted to bring a shekel and a 10 shekel piece, just looking in front of me over here. If this is the sun, this is my melatonin. You can tell I've just come back from America. And this is my wool grain sleepy easy. Okay. This is the moon and this is the sun. Okay. If you like this. So if I go like this, there has to be two things. This has to be a certain distance away, and this has to be a certain size. This has to be a certain size for them to be exactly the same size. Exactly the same size means that when it's like that, the sun creates a crown to the moon, gives a little crown to the moon. If it was a little bit bigger, you'd see the sun. A little bit smaller, you wouldn't have that crown. It has to be exactly the size. It turns out that the number of the size is 400. How cool is that? So the sun is 400 times diameter than the moon and 400 times the distance away from the moon. The statistical possibility of that happening by chance in nature is zero, because no other bodies in the whole astronomical world that they studied has anything like that. It's only unique to the sun and the moon. So Reb Gabi said, you don't need to go further than this to see design. You want to see design in the Bria? It's Likya Hachama. How could that be that they are exactly the same size at a certain point, at a certain moment? They're exactly the same size. So when he said that, I actually burst into tears. I'm not such a crybaby. I was so emotionally in awe. It's just a beautiful thing to be misbeinin and underneath those stars. So it was something that really had a tremendous impact on me. Later on, there will be different moments where I would think about this again. For example, Ramesh Shapiro once came on Friday morning into Share, and he told us, he just made a comment. He said, I walked down to the Kotel Plaza for Vasikin, and I saw the full moon over the Alaska Mosque is one of I think the three places that has a full moon as well. Moons are normally, the Islamic moon is an eclipse. I think there are three places where it's a circle, and he says the full moon the real moon was right on top of the Islamic moon, and he said, I don't know what he said to us. He said I was filled with trepidation. Geulah Baruch Hu is giving a koach to Yishmael. So I have no idea about Ramesh Shapiro's trepidation. I don't know what that means. I do know that he took these things very seriously. These are not just chazals. These are not just cute things where we see that science and Kabbalah have an alignment. There's something very powerful going on over here. And let's see what else we can understand about what's going on over here. So the bottom line is that at this end of this month, which is in a week and a half, in exactly a week and a half, Reb Nati is joining us. So it's a great time to chazer over what we've said. Shalom, Reb Nati. I don't know if it's going to work for you in Houston, Texas, but in exactly a week and a half, there's going to be on April 7th, I think what today was April 8th, there's going to be a full lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse that has not been seen in a generation. It's the longest and darkest for 21 years. The next big one will be in 2045. So it's something special about it. Everyone's talking about this great solar. It's going to cover all of America, from East Coast, from West Coast over to the East Coast. And it'll be seen in Mexico, it'll be seen in Montreal, but the main place that it's going to be over will be the United States of America. And Likya Chama is a good sign for Klal Yisrael that's compared to the moon. It's a bad sign for America that is dema to the sun. We also did mention that the Levana has a twist to it because it is also the symbol of Islam. So it just opens up the possibility that I don't want to say the words, that their kaiches in the higher world also could be, so to speak, eclipse the kaiches of the sun. Those of you who have heard me over the last 6 months, so you know already that Menachem Nisl Shita, which I say tongue in cheek. I'm not saying this with rabbinical wisdom. I'm saying that if you ask Menachem Nisl, where do we see that before Mashiach comes, Yishmael and Esav will form a chibur, and this is Yishmael's time. This is Yishmael's moment. This is the fifth galus of Yishmael that we are experiencing in its full koach. So I say the answer is the BBC. I'm British, so I'm extremely biased. No one is as brilliant as the BBC in allowing Yishmael to have Malchus, in empowering the Malchus. What do I mean? Because they know that for every anti-Israel article that they have about starving Palestinian babies, or that the UN accuses our soldiers of doing atrocities, for every 9, they need 1 pro-Israel one. So you come out and say, look, they're very balanced. But then in the wisdom of their words, you see that they are giving MS to the sheker of Yishmael. Yishmael are shakranim b'tivam. It goes back to Yishmael. The very first time we meet him, we know that Yishmael pretends that he's not trying to kill Yitzchak. He pretends it's just a game. And we know his true intent. Surah is so right through him. And throughout his history, Yishmael is the shakran and the gazlan. As Ramesh Shapiro once said, if you put a Muslim, well, let's leave Muslim, let's just say B'nai Yishmael, you put them in a room and there's something they can steal and there's no consequence to it whatsoever, and they do not steal, they are going against their teva. That's what he said. So, and the same thing with sheker. If they have a chance to get away with the sheker and they don't, they are going against their teva. The Levana's koyach over the chama is that the chama, which is America and Europe a little bit, buys in, right? And not only buys in, they buy in willingly and give them that koyach. This is all in square brackets. Let's get back to the shir. I want to go back and talk a little bit more about SOD Ibbur and tell you over what I heard from my Rebbe, Ramesh Shapiro. It's very interesting because over Purim, I saw that, I don't know if you ever saw this sefer. This is Rabbi Eliyahu Weintraub. Rabbi Eliyahu Weintraub was an American Makubal in Bnei Brak that Ramesh Shapiro said at his Levaya that he was one of the few people that had the koach to change Gzeris in the higher world. And he has a whole essay on SOD Ibbur. And what I'm about to teach you now from Ramesh Shapiro is very, very similar to the way that he packages it. So I know I'm in good hands. So let's do this together. How can you and I understand SOD Ibbur in the language of that we can relate to, in language that inspires us, that language that gives us some koach? If David Shulman asked, if they're so against stealing, why do they cut off the hands of thieves? It's so interesting that I asked Ramesh Shapiro if Yishmael, the other thing that goes with stealing and lying is nus, right? Nus is the same thing. Is nus is taking somebody else's wife, which is a form of stealing as well. It's a form of sheker as well. And why is it that their women cover their heads? So Ramesh said that this is the ultimate expression of kol hamoisif gerea, right? Kol hamoisif gerea. When you're hiding a secret, you go to the extremes in the other way. So it could be that the same thing applies over here. That all this, they are violent in their own way. So this violence is dafka in the area of paisal, b'muma paisal. So, okay, so okay, so let us continue over here. Welcome, Rav Shmuel Ross. So what I wanted to say is as follows. I want to now understand what we can do to understand the world of SOD Ibbur in the language that we can relate to. Any one of you that learned in Yerushalayim Ur HaKodesh will remember that the months the weeks of Sefer Shmos here in Yerushalayim, they are very into this Kabbalistic custom to be makbid on what's called Shovavim. Shovavim stands for Shmos, Ve'era, Bo, B'Shalach, Yisro, Mishpatim. Shovavim. Shovavim is from the Arizal. Arizal was Megala, that Sefer Shmos, which is the Sefer of Golus and Geulah, is a time when we take the world of Mitzrayim that is inside of us, and we try and suppress it. So in Yerushalayim, it's massive. It's a massive thing over here. It's a whole industry to work on what's called in Kabbalistic language tikkun yesod. Tikkun yesod. As we all know, Mitzrayim was Mali Zima, and it was the world of lowliness and everything to do anything lowly that you can imagine. It's interesting. Just by chance, last week, a Shafan girl told me that her boyfriend in TJ, I thought it was very cute, was on their version of the VOD for Shovavim. They all put filters on their smartphones for Shovavim. That's what they did for Shovavim. They put filters on their smartphones. And honestly, I thought that was a beautiful, beautiful thing. Ramey Shapir expected his Talmidim to acknowledge Shovavim, to fast maybe on Thursdays. People fast on Mondays and Thursdays, but to fast on Thursdays for Shovavim. And just in general, it seems to me the people that need it the most do it the least. But Shovavim is a massive thing. I think that it is now filtering into America. Just like America, you see people going to the mikveh Erev Shabbos, which I never saw even 20 years ago. Now I think people have a Shovavim consciousness, and they work in this era. They learn Hilchas Nida, they do Chazara of Hilchas Nida. It's a big deal during these weeks. So Shovavim is a time to work on Tikkun Yesod. I just want to give you just a little bit of additional idea that each one, David Shulman, even Atlanta, they have Shovavim Shiurim. There we go. Atlanta, Georgia. There we go. So thank you. Well, it's fascinating that the Shovavim weeks correspond to Sefer Shemos. I never realized this growing up. Sefer Shemos is called Sefer Shemos. Each one of the 5 books of Moses are called Sfarim, right? So each Sefer has to have a theme. So Sefer Bereshis, the theme is Avos, whatever it is, it's the foundation Sefer. Vayikra is Kedusha. Bamidbar is Klal Yisrael in journey, in transit. And Dvarim is the Sefer of Messiah, right? Is Teresh Shval Peh. So the Sefer of Shemos is called Geulah. And Geulah is on 2 levels, Klal Yisrael's Geulah and personal redemption. That is the avodah of how it works over here. So the Shlah comes along and says the following thing. The Shlah says that, the Arizal adds that one second. The Arizal says that in an Ibbur Yar, it's Shovavim Tat. You add Truma and Tetzaveh. That was my point. We add Truma and Tetzaveh. Freak Rav Moshe and freaked you and I, such an obvious question. What's going on over here? Why do you add 2 more weeks to Shovavim? Because, you have an extra month. So the Shlah says, because in an Ibbur Yar, there's an Indian to do so, because the Truma and Tetzaveh talks about Binyan Beis Hamikdash. But the Shlah does not explain himself, and Rav Moshe gives over his theory of what the Shlah is referring to. First of all, again, if there's an Indian to mention Truma and Tetzaveh because of building Beis Hamikdash, so do it every year. If there is an Indian to do it dafka by Ibbur Yar, why stop in Truma Tetzaveh? What about V'yakal Pekudei? Kisisa is a different sugya, which Rav Weintraub talks about with the Chet Egel, but at least why not return to Shovavim from V'yakal Pekudei? So the answer to everything boils down to the Ramban. This Ramban is the Ramban at his introduction to Sefer Shemos. It's got to be in amongst the top 5 most important Rambans. Well, it's for sure in the top 10, where he goes into great detail to talk about what is the nature of Geulah, what is the nature of the Sefer Shemos. And he says, I quote, he says, Hachzaras, hold on one second. Yeah. This is Menachem Nissel, right? This is Menachem Nissel saying over here that Sefer Shemos, Sefer Geulah, Hachzaras Tzuras Adam LaAdam Rishon Lifnei Achet, they're Klal Yisrael. So how do you get back to the way that we're supposed to look as Adam and Chava Lifnei Achet? That is the goal of Klal Yisrael. Klal Yisrael's mission at Har Sinai is to fix the sin of Adam and Chava, to go back into the garden and to bring the world back into the garden. So that is done during the weeks of Shovavim. That is done when we learn the parshas of Sefer Shemos, Sefer Geulah. Anyone that's ever been to a Hasidic Rebbe will know that Parshas Bo, we to always recreate Seder Night. Parshas B'Shalach, we recreate Kriyas Yamsuf. Parshas Yisrael, we recreate Matan Torah. All these things are very powerful. This is the time where we elevate ourselves. For you and for me, it means the dark side of the internet, whatever we can do to try and work on etikkun Yesod. Now, says the Ramban, this is the Ramban, V'hinei, Hagalis Eina Nishlam. The true Galus can only be finally completed with, I'm skipping a bit, the binyan of the bias of the Mishkan. Shaboy Shavu El Milas Abasam. That's when we go back to Sefer Avos. We go back to the Milas of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Va'az Nechshavu Geulim. That's the true Geula. Ve'ena Nishlam HaSefer Azeh Ela Be'Shlimai Inyan HaMishkan Ve'Hachzaras Kved Hashem Mole Eisei Tamid. So that is the final Geula. I had a thought because we're a few weeks away from Pesach. V'hitzesi, v'hitzalti, v'ga'alti, v'lakachti. It fits in perfectly. V'hitzesi is the literal Parshas Bo. We came out of Egypt, right? So we're still very much under the influence of Mitzrayim, both physically and spiritually. They're chasing us. V'hitzalti is Kriyas Yamsuf, is the Hatzalah for Mitzrayim. Finally, we're on our own, but we don't know what our mandate is. V'ga'alti, the Geula comes when we get Har Sinai and Parshas Mishpatim, where we actually are shown, okay, now we know what we're supposed to be doing. That's the Geula. That is, we're setting up our home, Klal from the Kodesh Baruch Hu. But the Lakachti is the last part of the wedding that we don't get to see, is we go in and we share a house together. That's going into the Mishkan. But Lakachti says the Shla, the way Rav Moshe Shapiro explains it, is Lakachti did not exist in Klal Yisrael after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Meaning, if you want to know what is the oimek of the Churban, if you want to understand properly from Shivas V'Tamas till Tisha B'Av, why is it so terrible, is that we lost V'lakachti, we lost the Beis Hamikdash, we lost the ability of B'shavu El Milas Avisehem. Comes along the Shla and says that an Ibbur is different. This year, when we have Adar Sheni, there we have an echo. We have a shaychus to that world of the full Geula. We have a connection to the world of the Beis Hamikdash. Why? Because of the intrinsic nature of the Sod HaIbbur, and therefore we can add Truma and Tetzaveh. We can add the inyan of the Beis Hamikdash. How does this work? So this is the key to everything. The next 5 minutes is where everything's going to fall into place. What is the Sod HaIbbur all about? Why is it such a massive thing in Judaism? The answer is, I mentioned to you beforehand, the Rambam says that the pasuk in the Torah that tells us that Beisin have an obligation in Yerushalayim Har HaKodesh, the closest place to Gan Eden, to be Ma'aber the Shana, is a mitzvah from the Torah Shenema L'Chadshe Hashana, the months of the year, L'Chadshe Hashana. So Rav Moshe, I heard this maybe 100 times from him. The word Chadshe Hashana are two totally opposite terms. The word Chadshe comes from the word Chodesh. Chodesh, as we all know, is his Chadshus. It's the nature of the moon, right? The nature of the feminine body as well. Cycles, cycles, cycles. You hit the bottom, everything disappears, and then something new comes up. And every time something new comes up, we're hoping that when it reaches the zenith, it will stay that way. But we're never zeicher, so then it goes down, and then it comes up again. I once heard that there's 15 generations from the Avos to Shlomo Melech. And those 15 generations, Shlomo Melech, when the night that he married Basparo was the night that he built that first Beis Hamikdash. He could have been the Melech HaMashiach, and the moon would have become big like the sun. But he messed up with Basparo, and then there's 15 generations taking us down to when Tzidkiyahu has his eyes removed, and that is finally the final nail in the coffin to Klal Yisrael's attempt to, in the 2,000 years of terror, to fix the world and bring us back to the Garden of Eden. Be that as it may, those are the cycles of the moon. The moon, you climb up and you try and stay there. So, and then you fail, you wait to hit the bottom, and then you climb up again. So Chodesh is Miloshin Hischachus. This is something that you and I cannot see in the Bria. This Koyach Hischachus is hidden. This Koyach Hischachus is totally Klal Yisrael's little secret, because Chiddush is the world of Nisim. Chiddush is the world of L'malam in Ateva. The world of L'malam in Ateva is connected to the moon, and connected to the idea that everything physical that looks like it's crashing can be turned round with the koyach of nes and can be elevated once again. Nothing cannot be elevated. Everything that goes down can come up. This concept of chiddush is not natural in the Bria. You don't see it anywhere in the Bria except for the moon and except for Klal Yisrael living that way secretly behind the scenes. Everything about Klal Yisrael is like the moon. Is chiddush. But there's another world, which is the standard world of Teva, which is the world of the sun. Ein chadash tachas hashemesh. There's no chiddush under the shemesh, meaning the shemesh is the world of Teva. It's the world of seasons. It's the world of whatever you see when you study nature. You go to Africa, you see the laws of the jungle. That's the laws of Teva. You look at nations and how nations interact and the history of nations. If you live in Europe, so you'll know that after 2,000 years, the French will always still be there to annoy everybody else. It's just nature, okay? Everything keeps going round. Everything keeps going in Teva. Now, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll time. What is the Sod HaIbbur? The Sod HaIbbur is the following. You and I don't get this, but we can watch it from afar. Somehow, Klal Yisrael came out of Egypt and was created as a nation. Egypt was the maximum of tumah, the maximum of shiftless, the maximum of lowliness, and like a mother holding a child, what came out was maximum kedusha. How does it work? That's the Sod HaIbbur, the secret of a pregnancy, where unlike your pregnancy, our wives' pregnancies, where the child comes out looking like the mother and the father, the first thing that we ask is, who does he look like? Who does she look like? The Sod HaIbbur in Mitzrayim was that out of the Mitzrayim came Klal Yisrael. Out of the Sela came Dvash. No one understands how these things work. That's exactly what we do with Adar Sheni. We take the sun in this case is connected Mitzrayim, and the moon comes out of the sun and is born. Meaning, somehow or other, the moon realigns with the sun and becomes ki'ilu, they're one body, and one comes out of the other. Meaning that there's no true contradiction between them. Meaning that ultimately, just like it will be in the end, the Klal Yisrael will reveal that everything that happened in Golus, the Gimel Lamed of Golus and the Gimel Lamed of Geulah is one and the same. Similarly, the contradiction, the tension with the sun and the moon will eventually show is nothing more than Dimyon. It's all one and the same. That is the Sod HaIbbur, and now I'm going to say it one more way that's going to make it extremely simple for all of us, because the Ramban says the following words that you all know, because it's not any Ramban, it's the number one Ramban. At the end of Parshas Bo, the famous Rab Chatzkel Ramban, Rab Chatzkel Levenstein, was not capable of giving a shmooze without quoting this Ramban at the end of Parshas Bo, that says the following, and I quote, "Min hanisim hagdolim hamufarsamim," the great nisim hamufarsamim, which happened when we came out of Egypt, those great miracles. Adam moide benisim anistarim. We came out of Pesach. We were able to understand that the miracles that are within nature itself are also miracles. Shehein Yiseda Torah Kula. That's the Yiseda of the whole Torah. She'ein la'adam chelik b'teres Moshe Rabbeinu ad shenamim b'kol dvarenu u'makarenu shekulam nisim be'ein behem teva u'minhagay shel olam. Meaning, the ultimate goal of the moon is to show that the sun is also nisim. That everything we thought was not nisim is nisim. The whole world of Mitzrayim, which today is America, that believes that everything is teva, everything is nature, it's going to be revealed that every small, teeny, weeny little prat was a Kadosh Baruch Hu all along. That, the Ramban says, is the ultimate yesod of everything. And that is included in the great revelation of the Sod HaIbbur. The Sod HaIbbur shows that what is considered hidden and what is considered revealed, hidden is the moon, revealed is the sun. It's basically the same. Okay, it's the same like a child coming out of a mother, or on a different level like a husband and a wife. So, where do we see this in our own history? Where do we see that there was a seamless, no contradiction between the sun and the moon? The answer is in the Beis HaMikdash itself. The Beis HaMikdash, there's many, many chazals that talk about this. Let me just quote to you a few that we all know. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, there was 10 ongoing miracles the whole time. For 830 years, you could walk into the Beis HaMikdash and see Nisim, rules that break the rules of nature. You'd see it with your own eyes. So it could be that you got used to it, but at the end of the day, when you step out, you realize what I just saw was a nace. How could these things happen? And the answer is because you were in the makom of Beis HaMikdash is like the 13th month. It's mamish like the 13th month. Or we should, every Yom Kippur, we talk about the Kohen Gadol goes in to a place where there's no space and no time. Some of you know the Gemara Megillah, Aron Eina Min Amida. There, suddenly time and space is suspended. The whole area of the Mishkan and Mikdash was a place without time and space. Or another example that we all know, Bezalel created the Mishkan using the tzirufim of creation itself. The tzirufim of creation itself means the tzirufim of the creation before the Chet of Adam and Chava. It went back to the origins. The Mishkan was a pristine place, like a little shtickle Gan Eden. In Gan Eden, there was no difference between Teva and Lamalam in a Teva. There was no difference between Nisim Gluyim, which is Mitzrayim, and Nisim Nistarim, which is, of course, Purim. The world of Nisim Nistarim is the month of Purim. So we just learned something incredible, that Sod HaIbbur, the reason why this is so big, because Sod HaIbbur is the end of the story. And it comes out that there we have a shaykhus to Truma and Tetzaveh. Ramosha says, V'yakal B'kodei, not yet. V'yakal B'kodei is the actual building B'poyel. The building B'poyel can only be with the Melech HaMashiach. But the shaykhus to the world of Mikdash and the world of Mishkan, that's Truma and Tetzaveh. That in an Ibbur we can have, because there's a seamless connection between the Malam and Teva and Teva, between Nisim Nistarim and Nisim Gluyim. They all, excuse me, I did it wrong. Nisim Nistarim, which you don't see, and Nisim Gluyim, which is Pesach. And Pesach, as you all know, is all the miracles were visual. Everyone saw the Kriyas Yamsuf. Everyone saw the miracle of Choshech. And in the Purim story, everything is hidden, 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 hidden. You don't have to see any miracles at all. But when Purim meet Pesach, meaning when Adar meets Nissan, so there we have a shaykhus to both of them, and there we have a shaykhus to the world of the final Geulah, where the two become seamless. And now we can look back and see what's happening to us, and it's a little bit scary, I have to tell you, because I don't know, are we ready for this? Are we not ready for this? Kadosh Baruch Hu is giving us an opportunity. I don't know how often these opportunities come back. The world is, we can't get used to what's happening over here. We can't say the new normal is that every single day Israel is being accused of atrocities. Everything that the Hamas did to us in Simchas Torah, now it's v'nafachu. We did it to them. It's v'nafachu. The whole world, it's it, whatever it is. But by the time we get to when Israel goes into Rafah, by that time then, so everyone know that we are a genocidal nation that uses starvation of Palestinian children as a weapon of war. So the whole world is a v'nafachu of the Sheka of Yishmael, and the Sheka of Yishmael is supported by all the keiches of the Levana, all the keiches of the nations of the world are pushing that Sheka. What does Klal Yisrael do? Klal Yisrael is given an opportunity called Ibbur Shana. And Klal Yisrael has got an opportunity called Likui Hachama through the Levana. The only way that we can have a shaykhus to it is that people like you and I, because I don't mean to be to be patronizing, but we're all there is. There is no magical people out there in Meir Sha'arim that are significantly firmer than us. No, there are a small, teeny weeny garin of people on this planet that recognize Einod Mulvana in our gut, and we're trying our hardest to live our lives that way. We are part of this small team. We're so small that we are statistically insignificant. But Mashiach needs that because only through us can the Geulah finally come. But we still need to constantly work on this Einod Milvada, which means that the Israeli army and America and the nations of the world and the United Nations, all of them are like, yeah, I have a pen over here. Okay, with this pen, I wrote my shir over here. I wrote my notes. So with this pen, I wrote my notes. You will thank me. You will look at my notes, but this pen is nothing more than an instrument. And the Israeli generals are instruments. The Israeli soldiers are not instruments because they're the ones that are being forced the whole time to scream out Einod Milvado. And America, what happens in their politics and what happens in their policies, it's not in their hands. They are puppets on a string. They are nothing more than Leiv Sarim Malachim B'Yad Hashem. When Biden speaks, Hashem is using him literally like a puppet. HaKadosh Baruch is talking. Rav Wolbe used to say from Rabbi Yisrael, "B'kam elai mareim tishmana oznai." Your nations of the world talk to you. What is Hashem saying? What does it mean when Colombia says that we are putting drugs into Palestinians? What does it say when South Africa say we're the murderers? It's all, everything is Chelm. But HaKadosh Baruch is talking to us. There is no America. There is no Hamas. I mean, obviously there's Hamas, but I mean is Hamas get their koyach whenever there's a vacuum in Einod Milvado. But if we work on the big three, and the big three is the Tfiles Keneged Yishmael, the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, which is the ultimate Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, especially today, if you know what's going on in Israel, is to support the Torah institutions, which is the bedrock of what is giving Tzahal all their success. And finally, Binad L'Chadera, which Bismanenu is Achdus, to once again to go back to Shushan, Ki Ish Echad B'Leiv Echad, or to go back to Har Sinai, Ki Ish Echad B'Leiv Echad, to become as much as we can. And it's not going to work with all of Klal, so I don't want to be negative. You guys are out there on the front lines of Kiruv. But if we amongst ourselves can have that garin, can have that little thing, so then tremendous things can happen. So give yourself, don't try and change the world, but give yourself the challenge. You've got another couple of days until that moment, that glorious moment where Adar Sheni, that time where you literally have a shaykhus to the world of Shovavim Tat, to the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, which is ultimately the Binyan of the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, reaches the Chag, the Chodesh of Geulah, the great renewal of all of the world. At that point then, the Kosh Baruch Hu says, you want me to show you how powerful it is? You have all the forces upstairs working aligned for you. There's going to be a Likui Hachama and the Levana, which is Klal Yisrael. We cannot let the Levana of Yishmael open its mouth. We cannot let them in to the narrative of his be Klal Yisrael and the Mekatrigim working on our behalf, and the Kosh Baruch Hu, and nothing else exists. If we're zeicher to do so, so then with all the pain that we're going through, we are living through very, very exciting times. And Be'ezrat Hashem Yisbarach, I should be zeicher this year. I'll see you all. Pesach will be going to be makriv and azvachim and apsachim, and we'll be able to enjoy finally to see how delicious and how yummy the Korban Pesach actually is. As Hashem Yisbarach, you're all invited to the Nisl Chabura, and we should all enjoy this together from Erev Yameinu with the Bias Hagel. Amen. Thank you so much for listening.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much.
We're good.
Sure.
Thank you.